I know I don't say it probably enough, but I appreciate those of you that are so faithful to come to God's house today. That so many people don't see the need of being faithful to the Lord's house. That it's just a place, a lot of people maybe go once a week to try to soothe their conscience and think that everything's okay. Yet that it's really hard to grow in the Lord if you're not getting a steady diet of His Word and the teaching of His Word. And I know that you need to do that more than just coming to church, but it's very important that we come to God's house, and that don't ever forget in the book of Hebrews chapter 10 where He said, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is. He speaks there in that particular, the context of that particular passage there, and those verses speak of how that when we come together to God's house that we inspire and encourage one another in our service for the Lord. And so that's so important, and I feel like it's always needful that if we're able to be in God's house that we do make that effort to go there, not only for ourselves but for others. That I never would want to be in the place that I discourage someone else from coming to church because I didn't go to church. And there's a mutual relationship among God's people. 1 Timothy chapter 3. Last week we dealt with the first part of this chapter, which dealt with the qualifications of he calls it a bishop. I went through some terms last week with you that are synonymous with bishop, whether it be pastor or elder or teacher or whatever it might be, that I believe it speaks of the same office. And those 7 verses 1 through 7, dealt with that. And we can sum up the qualifications of a preacher, really the statement he made in verse 2, that a bishop must be blameless. Remember, blameless means above reproach, that needs to be someone that there's nothing that could be said or could be he could be accused on that would stick, and certainly one that would be above reproach. So we come down to the 8th verse where I want to begin tonight. That deals with the second office in the church. That's an ordained office. And remember that there are only 2. There are many offices that a church can have. Those would be voted on by the church, and certainly be important for those office holders to be spiritual people, faithful people. But the 2 offices that are ordained offices are pastor and deacon. And I know some time back, it's probably been a few years now, that we looked at what the Bible talks about, the qualifications of a deacon, the purpose of a deacon. And I don't have a lot new to tell you from that. I didn't even go back, and I'm sure I've got some notes somewhere from that. I didn't go back and look at these, just try to let the Lord lead in the direction we'll go tonight. Nevertheless, that it's good for us to get this repetitively. That's how we learn. The word deacon means a servant is what it means. Sometimes the word is used, deacon, really only this passage and one more place in the book of Philippians chapter 1 and verse 1. It's as Paul, as he wrote to the church at Philippi, in the greeting that he gave them, he said it was to the bishops, or with the bishops and the deacons. And so that's the only 2 places that the word deacon is used in the scriptures. Nevertheless, that we'll go back to the book of Acts in just a minute after we read this, and we're going to see that in Acts chapter 6 that the office of a deacon, I believe, is described there, and yet the word deacon is never used. Listen, let me just say this, and we're going to go ahead and get into it. There's a lot of misunderstanding that I see or hear from people about a deacon and what a deacon, what his job is. And I feel like that's a very tragic thing because the Bible sets forth the pattern for the office of a deacon. It sets forth his responsibilities. And no matter what people may think that a deacon should do, or no matter what a deacon may think a deacon should do or should not do, that doesn't change the fact that the office of the deacon is set forth here in the Scriptures. And I want to try to bring it forth to you as I see it in the Scriptures, not necessarily maybe as some would see the office of a deacon. And I think if we'll be honest that you'll say that what's in the Scriptures is certainly how it needs to be. Verse 8, let's begin reading there. We'll read down through verse 13. Likewise must the deacons be grave, not double-tongued, not given to much wine, not greedy of filthy lucre, holding the mystery of the faith in a pure conscience. And let these also first be proved and let them use the office of a deacon, being found blameless. Even so must their wives be grave, not slanderers, sober, faithful in all things. Let the deacons be the husbands of one wife, ruling their children and their own houses well. For they that have used the office of a deacon well purchased to themselves a good degree and great boldness in the faith that's in Christ Jesus. Now, before I go any further, let me remind you that we're talking about the duties and order in the church, and that's what Paul is writing to Timothy here, as he would evidently be the pastor here of the church at Ephesus. And the key verse of chapter 2 and 3 is verse 15, which I didn't read on down that far, but I'll go ahead and read it now. He said, "But if I tarry long, that thou mayest know how thou oughtest to behave thyself in the house of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and ground of the truth." So he's setting forth here the order or the arrangement that is to be in the church. And again, these two offices, these two ordained offices being the pastor and the deacons. Now, if you just want to place something here, we're going to come back here. I think most of you can find it quickly enough. I don't have to place anything there. But go back to Acts chapter 6. Let's look at the original, what I believe is the original deacons, and what led to these 7 men being chosen by the church. As I said a minute ago, the word deacon is a transliteration of a Greek word, and the word is diakonos or diakonos. And it just simply means a servant, a minister, and not a minister in the fact of one who preaches, but one who serves. Or we call a waiter. You go to a restaurant and someone waits on you,